fostering rehabilitation within our penal institutions. The Universal Negro Improvement Association and the Hush the Guns program have collaborated on this educational exercise in teaching Garveyism. What is it all about and how will it help in the overall exercise? Joining us this morning are Stephen Golding, the president for UNIA, and of course Maura Morgan, director of the Hush the Guns program. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. I'm good. But let's start off with you, Steve, in terms of if Garveyism is still alive and well.
It certainly is. It is alive, it's well, and it's getting better day by day. The fact that we are now in the prisons facilitating that as part of their rehabilitation speaks to that. I spent a lot of years working on getting Garveyism in the schools. We've piloted programs at the primary, secondary, and the tertiary level. So prison is just a step further.
But before we get into that, though, for persons who may not be aware of what Garveyism or may forget what this is about, just remind us.
Marcus Garvey, of course, was one of the greatest philosophers of the 20th century. And the problem that we were trying to overcome is the teaching of his philosophy, not just the teaching of his biography, which I've been a strong critic of for a long time. I mean, it's fine to know where he was born and when he died, but Garvey impacted on so many sectors and facets of life that he should be studied much as Aristotle or Descartes, Socrates or Plato is, and in terms of what he offers, particularly to the race, to people of African descent, and to people who have experienced what it's like being an African in the West, with all that came with for however long, half a millennia. So it's about studying his philosophy, African fundamentalism, race first. These are the principles of Garveyism that we think, if they are taught in our schools and in our prisons, would have a major impact on some of the social problems we face in this country. We've been skirting around the issue for a long time without directly addressing it. We need to have a sense of history, a sense of identity. You know, the problem is we're taught our history from the point of slavery, not knowing that there's so many great accomplishments we had before we were brought to the Western civilization. And this is part of what we do in the prisons. That's
absolutely true. But in terms of the Hush the Guns program, I know you spoke about the prison, but give us a little bit more.
The Hush the Guns program is a three-phase rehabilitation program that has been running in penal institutions for 3 years now. And out of the initial program, which was life skills, behavioural modification, then into vocational skills and entrepreneurial skills, there was a whole between culture and what the young people thought their culture was. Well, their culture is not gangs and guns. That is not their culture. That may have become culturalised and accepted.
Right.
But that is not their culture. Their culture is men like Marcus Garvey, who stood for great things with great humility.
And how are the prisoners reacting to this aspect of it, of the program, though, in terms of the teachings?
Very well.
Yes, the class is full.
And it gets bigger each week. We have to remember, you know, Marcus Garvey himself spent a significant amount of time in prison. He did 2 years in Atlanta Federal Penitentiary. He did 3 months in the Tombs prison that's in Manhattan, New York City. He did 3 months in the Spanish Town General Penitentiary here. And he even wrote in his philosophy and opinions about the disproportion of black men in prisons, which is a trend even to this day in the West and even in the East. So they responded very well, and as Maura said, it's about getting a sense of what your true culture
is. Who you are.
You know?
Who you truly are. And you're not this corner man. You're not this bad man. You're a youth, yes, who lacked certain teachings. You're a youth who lacked certain exposure to things. But I found that when you expose the young people to their positive past, their response is good. There will be some that will kind of take it on a political, racial level, but that's not the true meaning of Marcus Garvey.
Right, but in terms of, do you actually find that since you've been teaching Garveyism, you find that there's been some sort of modification to their behavior in terms of their outlook on life, so to speak?
In terms of when we interact with them, yes, and that's part of the class too. We say, it's not just about coming here every week and we talk for an hour to 2 hours and then we expect you to go back to your normal routine. The UNIA essentially is an improvement association as we were created by Marcus Garvey. So, there needs to be improvement every step of the way, and we measure that, and there are ways we have of testing that. And we hope that when some of our students get out, some are due to be out the end of this year, some further on down the road, some a little further down the road, we're ready to embrace them as members of the organization. And they know that to be a member of the organization, you have to come out prepared to have a positive impact on the society and prepared to make a positive contribution.
Right, but being that you mentioned that some of them will be released in the near future, and sometimes we do have repeat offenders, but how does Garveyism, this program, help in reducing that reality, well, in terms of the rehabilitation aspect?
Can I answer that one?
Sure.
My experience of many years of working with young people in conflict with the law is that young people who know themselves love themselves. When they love themselves, they tend not to do things that will put themselves in a situation where they are at risk because they love themselves. And it is love, it's not...
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
So, you see a change in the young people already. The program that they've been on, the Hush the Guns program, the Calling the Shots behavioural change element, has already created a significant level of change within them. And then when they then move on now and they learn more of their past and their culture and their history through Garveyism, and we are open to others too.
And it's totally voluntary in terms of persons who want to actually sign up for the classes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's not mandatory, but we have to say, thanks to the correctional officers, thanks to the correctional services for facilitating, and that's the reason why I said each week we go, the class gets bigger. So it's not that you're forced to be there. And so we take that as a positive, sort of response when we see, this week you're here, next week you bring another inmate, or it's mentioned to another inmate and they come. So, I mean, we're filled to capacity. And, even responding to the impact it will have on them when they get out, let's recognize this. Garvey stood for race first. We're a country over 90% of African descendants, right? And when you understand the philosophy of Garvey, you cannot do some of the negative things that impact your very own community. And the fact is, a lot of the crime in this country is black on black crime.
That's true.
So, I mean, if you learn Garveyism and you learn to embrace that, then, you can't go back in your community and draw a gun for the next youth will look like you. It don't go down like that.
All right, well, keep up the good job, and thank you so much for passing through. Of course, we had Stephen Golding, the president for UNIA, and of course, Maura Morgan, the director for Hush the Gun Programs. Thank you so much for all your good work. All right, still to come, an early look at the Jazz and Blues Festival for next year. Major announcement by the promoters as one of the biggest names in the music business. Celine Dion, believe it or not, will be here. We'll talk about that.